Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on how to take fundraising to the next level with Great Nonprofits and Foundant Technologies. My name is Neha Paralkar, and I'll be your host for today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Great Nonprofits is the leading platform for community-sourced stories about nonprofits. We'll leave a link to our website in the comment box below. We're very excited to have Perla and Tammy here with us to help us take our fundraising to the next level. But before we get into introductions, here's just a few housekeeping notes. If you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to leave them in the question box. We will answer them at the end of the session, unless there is a question that needs to be addressed as we go along. I hope that you enjoy this session. Now, to introduce you to our speakers, first up we have Perla Nee. Perla is the founder and CEO of Great Nonprofits. We also have with us today Tammy Tilsey. Tammy is the director of GrantHub, a division of Foundant Technologies. Thank you so much for being here, Perla and Tammy. And now handing over to Perla.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. I realize your time is really valuable, and so we're going to try to pack a lot of good content that'll be useful for you in today. So as you guys know, there are thousands and thousands of stories on Great Nonprofits about you, about the great work that you do, recommendations about your work from your volunteers, your donors, your clients, and your community partners. It's a privilege for us to be a place to host your wonderful stories. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we show off your stories to the rest of the world to enable you to raise more visibility and funding for your work today. So maybe I'll first start off with why we know that your stories are important. You've probably seen your stories, so you know they're important to your staff. You know how it motivates your staff to do the work that they do day in and day out when they see these incredible recommendations about your work. We look at a lot of the research around storytelling and recommendations and personal stories. So, you know, one of the most famous stories, as you know, is Malala's story, and it's so emblematic, and it's something that has gone around the world. We believe in the power of stories to help nonprofits brand their work and get the kind of recognition that Malala has. If you look at stories, you know, anthropologically, the human race was built upon storytelling, the transmission of information, empathy through stories, through generations and generations. Great stories are emotional, they're concrete, they're credible, and surprising. They generate this kind of empathy which allows us to step into someone else's shoes. And as nonprofits, you know how important that is when you're trying to raise funding for your programs, to put your donor into the shoes of your client, to put the donor into the shoes of another person who is as passionate about your work as you are. So some of the research is actually really interesting about what they call brain-to-brain coupling. So this is what happens when someone tells a story, is that the person who's listening, their brain actually feels and reacts in the same way. So when you look at two brains, the brain of a storyteller, the brain of a listener, it's actually working in the same way when you put them, you know, attached to MRIs. So I wanted to kind of quickly ask what formats you may have tried in your organization, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some sort of storytelling formats that we've tried and tell you what seems to be successful. So right now the polls are open, so if you look on your screen and reply to the poll, we'll release all of your collective answers in about 10 seconds. Great. All right. So you guys should see now the poll results. Thanks everyone for participating. It looks like written story is the most popular way that you guys share your stories, and then audio and verbal, and then video. Oh, actually written story and then video, and then in-person sharing. So the number 1 is written story, number 2 is in-person, and number 3 is video. Awesome. Very, very cool. I'm glad that you guys are doing storytelling already. So let's show you how we can, some of the tests that we've been doing around storytelling. We got a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to do a 2-year storytelling research study to look at how donor stories can move other donors to give. And for us, we, as nonprofits, oftentimes we don't know that donors have a good story to tell, and it has been really surprising for us how passionate donors are of the work of nonprofits that they donate to, and how very often donors have an incredible story to tell. So the goal of this project was to better understand donor motivations, and be able to see whether when donors told their stories, it actually moved other donors to give. So I'll walk you through how we did this research, as well as some of the surprising results. So we wanted to test donor videos versus no videos versus other formats. So on the left here is a video, and on the right here is an example of just a photo with a quote from the video. We also tested different types of content, like from local nonprofits versus national nonprofits, to see if there was a difference. And then we also tested different formats, long form versus short form. I'll play this video quickly, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it through your web browser, but it's only 30 seconds. All right, so that's just one example of a video format that we tested. So here are our test results. With donor videos on websites, and we put it on the Great Nonprofits website. Many of you guys have probably seen them on the Great Nonprofits website. There was a substantial decrease in what is called the bounce rate, which is people who just leave after hitting one page on a website. We saw a 50% decrease in the bounce rate, and we saw a 38% increase in the number of donation actions. So people clicking on donate on the page where they saw the video. It didn't matter if the video was about a local organization or a national organization, which is great news for all you small local nonprofits out there. And not too surprisingly, maybe, shorter videos actually got more user engagement. So for your videos, as you guys are thinking about making videos for your storytelling, keep it short and sweet. So the reason why we're so excited about these results is that we think that nonprofits and donors can create so many more stories and use these stories to not only engage the donors that you have, and most of the donors love telling their stories on video. They really enjoyed the experience. They shared their own videos with their family and their friends, many of them on Facebook, and heard from people from far around the globe who really liked their videos. We believe that this storytelling through donor videos is also a great way for you guys to approach new donors. It's probably not too surprising that stories, help people engage, help people elicit emotion. But I think, what is new here is that we've always thought it was the stories of clients that mattered, and as it turns out, the stories of donors seems to have a strong impact as well. I can't do a webinar without mentioning to you guys about the Great Nonprofits Top-Rated badge. And many of you guys have participated in the Top-Rated Awards. So I'm just going to quickly kind of remind you about the awards deadline coming up at the end of October, and the awards have already started. This is another way to show off how many great stories you have collected, to show the credibility that you have in your community. And all you do is claim your nonprofit, invite clients and donors to share their story, and then you can show off your top-rated status. So super simple. I'm just going to mention it really quickly so that you guys don't miss the opportunity of being top-rated for this year. Some great benefits from being top-rated: you get press release templates, local media contacts, a social media toolkit in addition to the badge. So I'm really excited about one other way that your stories are being viewed by funders. You probably don't know this, but your stories are actually syndicated to grants management software companies, who in turn show it off to private foundations. So I'm going to turn it over to Tammy from Foundant, who can show you how your reviews actually appear to funders. Tammy?
Great, thank you, Perla. I appreciate that. And I'm really excited to join your webinar to discuss how Great Nonprofits and Foundant Technologies could help grant seekers, take their funding to the next level. And just a second about who Foundant is. We're focused on improving the granting process for both sides. We focus on software solutions that help both grant seekers and grant makers, and Great Nonprofits is one of our key partners in that effort. And we are integrating a lot of the Great Nonprofits profiles, reviews, and stories into our software solution. So as Perla said, we're really trying to help you and your stories shine. And here is a screenshot of what funders who are using our product for grant makers and funders. You can see here where funders can quickly refer to the Great Nonprofit data and look at the reviews and see those great stories that you have posted in your profile when you apply to them. So this extends the impact that you could have by updating your profile and making those stories available. So the topic that I wanted to really focus on today for the remainder of my time is on the challenges that grant seekers and nonprofits who look for fundraising, challenges that you face, and some of the best practices and tips that could help you take your grant funding practice to the next level. So if everybody could just spend a minute, maybe this graphic represents you or brings back some memories or some pain points, but there's a lot to keep track of. And if you're doing your best to build relationships with funders and raise grants for your organization, there's just a bunch of things you need to track and do well to be good at that. So when we built one of our solutions, the Grant Hub for grant seekers, to help plan, submit, write, and report, we interviewed and talked to a lot of people who submit applications and nonprofit organizations about their challenges, and I'm using that material today that we gained in that process. I'm not here to show you Grant Hub at all. I'm here to share with you some really key insights and best practices and tips that'll work with whatever solution you're working with today. So I may show a couple screenshots in Grant Hub to show you some data or information, but I'm not here to show you Grant Hub. So this is the agenda slide that I have, and I'm going to dive into these first three elements of these grant management best practices. So first is tracking funders, grants, and deadlines. And you may do this in some way or some extent already, but I want to give you some tips on elements or fields about funders that you could track that'll help you increase your effectiveness. So right here, we have several fields that we determined and had heard back from grant seekers that it's nice and handy to have a list of all of your grants, a list of all of the tasks and outstanding action items, whether they're follow-up reports or grant due dates, and then notes about what happened with the funder. So all of these things we incorporate into Grant Hub, but I want to, and I think you get copies of these slides. So what I wanted to communicate today is what is the information that is a best practice to collect on funders. So the funder name, of course, and then all of the information about what they fund, what type of funder they are, their tax ID could help you access their 990s, how much do they typically fund, how do you get a hold of them, are they on social media, contact and address information. 2 is key. So we wanted to pass this on as one of the tips, is collect information about each funder. There's a lot of turnover sometimes in nonprofit organizations, and having this information collected and in one central repository where everybody can get to it and see the notes on funders, etc., is key to helping you take your fundraising to the next level. So the next element here are opportunities, is another word we call them, but it's grants. So what information do you collect when you know there's a grant opening? Of course, you know the funder and you know the proposal deadline, but what are some of those other fields that you should be collecting and tracking as you go? And here we have the list for information to collect on grants. And again, I hope you're not trying to write all this down. We will give you copies of the slides that have all this information on it. But the red ones here are highlighted as being most important to help you track and report progress on grants as well. So those are highlighted, but if you know all the other ones, keeping all this information in a database, or a lot of times if you're just starting out with grants or grant funding and fundraising and you don't have too many to keep track of, you may be tracking them in Excel spreadsheet and keeping all the documents of what you submitted for the LOI, when the reporting due dates are. You may be tracking this in Excel plus a file system and maybe even your email or calendar application, and that's fine. But as you build your practice, keep in mind that these are some of the fields that experts have recommended that you keep track of. All right, the last element here is track deadlines and remind your team of those deadlines. And so if you have some type of a system, whether it's that shared spreadsheet or, like I said, the calendar, keeping track and reminding, setting task reminders is something that it keeps you looking professional to the funders. Whenever we ask our funders what tips they have for grant seekers, what makes the relationship strong and how can people build on that, the first thing that comes up is, be on time with your report due dates. They hate reminding, or they feel really bad if they can no longer fund an organization if you've missed one of these deadlines. So they're really wanting you to have some type of a system and keep on your grant process to the point where you can stay on top of those deadlines. You know when they're coming, you're early. And not only you as a grant, if you're a grant manager, if you're responsible, but your whole team, your program directors know when the reports are due, or they're keeping track of it monthly. So here we have a list of when the upcoming deadlines for the next couple weeks are due. And if you use this or a Google Calendar that's shared, however you do it, but sending out email reminders is a best practice that can really help you maintain your funder relationships and being eligible for funding. Okay, streamlining the proposal creation. And this is on a topic called being grant ready. And grant ready has become known in the nonprofit industry to be having your ducks in a row, if you will. It has been said, and experts have said, that you can be ready and have 80% of your next grant proposal ready to go, 80% of it done by just being grant ready. And so many of you have maybe done this, where you keep track of all of the common answers that you're asked for. So right now I've paged out into GrantHub. Again, I'm not showing you what GrantHub is, but we have what we call an answer library portal here, repository, where you can track your 501c3 letter, your operating budget, your board of directors. Elements like this are important to have at your fingertips and know whether they've expired or if all the data in them is at your current board of directors. And if it's posted here, everyone can then know that that is the latest and greatest. And if you have a shared file or some other place, repository, where all this information exists, the more complete it is, the more grant ready you will be. So one of the elements that we have here that you can really take your fundraising to the next level is all of those great stories. You saw how much they increase the donation in the study that Perla just covered. So we have an integration that allows you to put all of your selected great nonprofit stories into your central repository here. So you can look and easily copy and paste the information that Lori told about the story of how her experience with your nonprofit went. Volunteer stories, constituents, all of these can be saved here. And the reason why I jumped into the program is because I want to show you how easily you could do that, and the great information that Great Nonprofits collects and makes available, not only so that funders could see them, but you can use it also to strengthen your applications, even if the funder doesn't connect and see those stories right off, and all of your individual donation requests, etc. So here is the admin portal, if you will, and you can see your own information. But what I want to show here is you can also see this information is pulled from the Great Nonprofits website. So this helps you quickly review the stories that have recently been said, and if you want to import them as an answer into your answer library, you can do that. And after I give it a name, I want to refer to this story from Rodney in my answer library, and I want to use it in my proposals for a certain program. I can now see this here, and I could either copy and paste it, as I mentioned before, or a best practice of streamlining your proposal creation is to have all these elements ready so that maybe even a grant coordinator or an intern could come through and look at your previous answers to other grant applications or your boilerplates and come through here and say, I want that volunteer story, I want the board of directors, evaluation and goals, of course your mission statement, and brief organization history. You get the point. You could come through here and select any of those items that you would want to include in your proposal and export them into a first draft. And that is something that, as we talk to grant seekers, having that ability to quickly see all those items and stories and elements in one document, now you could start tuning it for the specific funder that you're applying to. But 80% of the work might be already done by just using that grant-ready repository that you have. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the slides here. And so being grant ready is a checklist of, do you have all of the elements that are required for you to be successful at fundraising and through grants. And as I showed you, the portal for answer library, as well as using your stories and having those included in your repository of grant ready items. That is a key part. So as you can see, this is the same screen I showed you earlier. As you apply, having those stories current or encouraging people to put, and fill out stories is important, because the funders can also see that as well from their portal. All right. Now, the fifth best practice that I have is metrics and key performance indicators, KPIs. So being proactive and methodical about the metrics that you collect and that you present and communicate to other groups, whether it's your executive director, your development director collecting these, or whether you present regular reports on your fundraising performance to your board at your board meetings. The more you can communicate through reports and metrics and say, this is our goal for this year, to apply to this many funders, to be successful at this much fundraising, these items are a best practice. So as we talked to a lot of nonprofits in our research, we came up with these as being the metrics, the KPIs. What do people keep their thumb on when they're looking to see if we're on track, or what goals should we set? And so number of repeat funders, but in order to keep that funnel fresh, how many new funders are you researching? How many are you adding to your annual proposal requests? And setting a goal to always look for new ones, so that you're not dependent on just a few returning funders. You want to make sure that you diversify your funding sources, and so that may be a goal that's critical for your organization. And so setting a metric about how many new funders compared to how many repeat funders you have may be a key metric. The total number of applications, that's something that's always comes up top of the list. How productive am I? How many applications did I send? But that is a baseline metric, and you may be more focused on the quality. So how many are awarded, or how many are a good fit, so that your win percentage, the amount of applications that are accepted, maybe that's also a goal that goes along with it, so that your team isn't wasting time applying to funders just to get that metric up. So using just one of these is usually not a good idea, but coupling them so that you could show what your strategy is. Tracking how much you've been awarded versus what you requested, or if you were denied. And funding by source. Are you going to government? Are you going to foundations? Are you fundraising from individuals? What is your mix, and how much and what success are you seeing from each source? And fundraising by program or project. If you have multiple programs or projects, you probably have a budget of what you need incoming funds in order to keep that program running smoothly. And so being able to track and report on how many funds may be restricted to a specific program or project, and how you are progressing on raising that money is always well received, and something that people feel real comfortable if they have a consistent report that shows progress on that. Number of meeting with funders. If you're at a point where your relationships with funders are not what they used to be, maybe you had some personnel turnover, maybe you're just starting in the grant fundraising arena. So you may want to track how many of these early meetings that you have with funders. It's been said that, you know, just like building a personal relationship with friends or other relations, you need to meet with them 7 times before you really get down to business, to really understand and let them learn about you and learn about them to see if it's a good fit. So tracking those may be a key metric. Top funders for each program, knowing who is your major funders are, and then looking at how many proposals you have coming up by month. One of the things that we found out is one of the hardest working but unknown people in an organization can be the people who are doing your grants. It's something that sometimes is a second job for the executive director or some other person, or even if somebody's dedicated to it, the amount of work that they do in maintaining relationships, filling follow-up reports, and how many proposal deadlines are due each month, seeing that on a chart and seeing the visibility to that can really help promote and have people have confidence in your ability and understand when you say, well, we'll need more resources if we're going to double our fundraising through grants. You could easily show the logic for that with data to back it up. So here are, you know, some other lists that people like to see all of the details as well. So hopefully you could take away some of these. We have a takeaway that I'm working with Great Nonprofits to give you a link for at the after the webinar is over in a follow-up email. So this report contains all of these metrics and also some sample graphs of if you want to communicate this information, here's a way that you might think to communicate it, and areas of concern that you need to make sure you have the data to produce. So here's some screenshots of the reports that we have, the canned reports in GrantHub. So showing the opportunities by status at a midpoint during the year. So this could be for 2017, sorry about the date there, but at this point in the year, how many grants are you still planning to submit? How many are you working on right now? How many are pending a decision? And already so far this year, how much have you got in and how much have you been denied? So this showing this report every month or being able to pull this up helps people feel confident that you have the pipeline to meet your budget goals. And then this is that opportunity deadlines by month that I was telling you about. If you see that you have 9 grants that were due in January and that November has 8, but that June only has 1, you may decide to get that one turned in early and take vacation in June. Or you may know what month you want to save open for some asking and building relationships from new funders. That may be the objective to do in June. So understanding what your workflow is and seeing that visually is something that can be very helpful. Win percentage, how much have you applied to and have been awarded versus denied? This is not the percentage that you would normally see, but this is from an organization who has taken a strategy of only applying to those funders that are a very good match. And by doing that, they save time from filling out applications to those funders they know they won't get funding from, and increasing the return on their time. So once you set a baseline of what you think you could get and your strategy of what you want to get, you could track that and report on it. And of course, a list of all of the grants that have come in, whether they're what stage they're in. Those types of reports are very helpful and provide and give you that confidence that you are doing your best there. So as I mentioned, we do have this grant metrics and key performance indicators. This is hot off the presses. This is something that I've been collecting, and there's been several groups on LinkedIn or other grant discussion groups that have asked people to share what they have collected and what they've used. So again, this isn't particular to Foundant or GrantHub, but this is a report on different metrics and reports and KPIs that we have found to be useful. So in summary, the 5 grant management best practices that I wanted to communicate today is keep that central repository for all of your funders and the notes and tasks and documents. Make that easy to find. Make sure that if your computer goes down, that it is in the cloud somewhere or backed up on the network and other people can get to it. And that's a best practice not only for you, but as an organization, even if you're not in charge of grants, making sure that that happens really lowers the risk and your dependency on the person that's working on it now. And if something happens to their computer or you lose information, do you have to spend a lot of time reinvesting your industry knowledge there about the funders that you found to be good partners? And maintaining a rolling calendar, a grant plan. So as you see grants that are awarded, keeping those in a calendar or list of opportunities of those that are coming due, and having that out 12 to 18 months in the future is a best practice. And then, as I showed you, using those lists and reminders to keep everybody on schedule, being grant ready, and especially including the great nonprofit stories to spice up all of those elements that you pull together for a proposal. And then providing those timely reports on your pipeline and progress. So I hope you've taken away some best practices and something from my session today. And at this point, we have some resources that are available. If you have any questions on what I've presented, feel free to reach out to me. Here is my email. And on our website, we do have that report, as I mentioned, as well as educational webinars and other key items and white papers that are focused on building and improving your grant-seeking processes and skills, no matter what tools you use. So now we're going to transition to the question and answer section of our webinar. So I'll turn the time back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Tammy. So that was a quick tour, you guys, of 3 ideas on how to take your fundraising to the next level. The donor stories, the Great Nonprofits badge, and collecting stories so that they're shown on Foundant, and also managing your grants process using the terrific Foundant platform, or ideas for how you can do it with other platforms as well. But we encourage you to think about like all these new creative ways to really raise money for your organization. We know that most of you guys are small local organizations, and it's really hard to get the staffing to raise money in a way that you would like to. So the solution that we're presenting to you are all relatively low touch in that for collecting stories, you know, it's simply sending out an email and inviting other people to contribute stories. For the Foundant platform and grants management, it's really about creating a process so that there is an institutional memory, even if you have volunteers who do your fundraising currently and they turn over, and how is a new volunteer going to step in and continue to track what are the grant opportunities that you have. So hopefully that was a quick kind of 3 quick ideas that are for you to use for your fundraising. So we'll go to some questions.
Thank you so much for that, Perla and Tammy. We're going to be taking questions in just a minute. So if you have questions for any of our speakers, I request you to please leave it in the question box. Yeah. So for the first question, we have a question for Perla. What is a good short length for a video?
30 seconds. I know it's really short, but You know, we're in an age of like Twitter and Instagram, and 30 seconds that's of all the formats we've tested, that performs the best so far.
Thanks, Perla. The next question we have is for Tammy, and we'd like to know how you can integrate your product with you know, a company's CRM.
Great question. Our product, GrantHub, has the ability to import or export information via CSV if you have your funders in a different database. If you're using a CRM like Salesforce or other donor management solution for individual donors, there is a way to connect and link the two. But if you find yourself trying to track it in Salesforce and track your grant deadlines and that's not working for you, there is a way to utilize a tool like GrantHub and connect it. And so we have more demonstrations on that available off our website if you want to know more. But being able to track both individual donations and the revenue coming in from that, as well as your grant process, is a key best practice. Thank you for that question.
Thanks, Tammy. And Dave would like to know, what is the most successful way to get those 7 meetings with the funder that was mentioned by you, Tammy?
That's a great question. There are several tactics and strategies. The first thing, if you see that they have a grant that you feel that you're a good match for, read over the requirements, read over the instructions, and usually they have someone there as a contact. So come up with a question that you have. Don't ask a question that's been already answered on their website, but come up with a question on, hey, I think this program would be a good fit for this grant that you are giving, and I just want to confirm it before I waste both of our times if it's not. And that's a good way to start a conversation. Things from looking at who they have funded in the past, or if they're active in the community or in your constituent or the area that you serve, and if they're out there in the community, going to their events and seeing what they're doing or who they fund and support, and meeting them in the community is also another way. There's entire white papers and educational webinars just on that topic, so I won't go any further into other tactics about setting up those 7 meetings, but hopefully that gives you a taste and lets you dive in to find more.
Thank you, Tammy. Perla, people would like to know how effective are short videos on Facebook that are low-tech? How effective are short videos on Facebook that are low-tech?
When you mean low-tech, as in like, you know, like a video that you make yourself, maybe on your iPhone. So here's the thing that we've discovered with videos and testing. So the most important thing about a video is lighting, and the second most important thing is sound. And the hard thing about shooting video on your own phone is the sound quality may not be very good. So what we have really tried is getting volunteers who, many of whom, like, there's so many videographers out there, and making sure that they have the right equipment. So they have lighting and they have video camera, and having them do the video. It makes a huge difference, like being able to hear the sound and not being able to hear the sound quickly. So I would say that if you can, the most important thing is like the equipment. If you can get a volunteer videographer who has the equipment, then you can produce pretty good videos. It's really not a matter of like, does it have to be like professionally edited? Does it have to look like it's super polished? No, it doesn't have to look like all of those things, but it does need to have good lighting so you can see the people, and it has to have good sound so that you can hear them.
That's great. Thanks, Perla. The other thing we'd like to ask you is, could you also explain how exactly you saw a decrease in bounce rate when you use these videos?
Yeah, so we use Google Analytics on your website. It's a free tool. You can use it on your website as well. And we put the videos on our website. So it tracks, Google Analytics tracks how many people leave your site after just coming to that one page. So we measured pages with the videos and pages without the videos, and then compare the two, and that's how we got the change in the bounce rates. And similarly for the donation activities, we had some pages that had videos and some pages that didn't have videos, and then we tracked how many people clicked on the donate buttons.
Thank you. Tammy, we'd like to know from you if there are any conditions that you have for joining Grant Hub.
Yes, Grant Hub is a tool for grant seekers, and there is a cost to it. The cost is $75 a month, but there are no requirements. We typically see that the return on that investment is seen when you have about 20 grant deadlines that you're trying to keep track of in addition to other things. So you could probably tell when you're getting stressed out and you have this grant anxiety where you're afraid and you're waking up in the middle of the night wondering if you missed a deadline. If you're at that point, maybe you need to look at a solution that helps you organize and keep on track of those deadlines. We have people that haven't even started their grant requests yet, and they just want to start off organized. But typically, the rule of thumb is if you have 20 or more grants that you are actively working in a year. So did that answer that question?
Yes, thank you so much, Tammy. Perla, if we can ask you this, our viewers would like to know how you can get or engage patients to participate in storytelling. How do we get them to give the most relevant responses?
So if you are a healthcare provider, one way that you could do this is to, if there are kind of patients in your at your facility, let's say you're running a free healthcare clinic, you might be able to have a videographer available like on that day, and just ask patients as they're exiting, hey, would you mind taking 2 minutes? We just want to, get a video of you talking about your experience with our clinic, and seeing if they'd be willing to do that. Another way is to, we have a texting service, so you can have, and it's free, you can put up the phone number where people can go on their mobile phones and text their story to that phone number, and then it shows up automatically on your Great Nonprofits page. We have a lot of organizations that work with veterans do that. So all that requires is if you look on your nonprofit profile page, there is on the right-hand side, it says something like promote your reviews or something like that, and there's a little SMS icon. If you just click that, it'll show you the phone number and the messaging that you could use, and you can just put up a poster at your health clinic and ask people to share their reviews.
And you mentioned collecting donor stories. Are there any, can you recommend some good ways to do it, Perla?
How else to share your reviews?
For collecting donor stories.
Oh, yeah, so these donor stories that we collected, we worked primarily at events. So we worked with local giving networks, and so they would have like a holiday party, or they have a demo day or a pitch day, and we would ask them, hey, could we show up? Could we bring our videographer? Could we get a quiet room where we can invite donors to come in and do a 5-minute videos? So for you guys, as you're thinking about like your next annual event, your student graduation event, any events where you are expecting donors, just let them know beforehand, hey, we appreciate you coming to our event, and by the way, we're going to be doing videos of donors who support our cause, and we would be delighted and honored if you would share your story. We've found so many donors who are excited about sharing their story. who, when they hear something like that, they're like, why not? You know, I mean, they feel like, wow, it's a privilege to be asked to share my story, and they really enjoy being on tape and doing their videos. So I would look to events where that you're already planning, where donors are going to be, and collect the videos at your events.
And is there any kind of information that is key for donors to include in the telling of their stories?
Yeah, so kind of the 3 questions that we use to prompt people are, why did you give to this nonprofit? What surprised you about your giving? And has your giving changed your perspective? And if you look at some of these donor stories, they're really transformational. This is what gives me hope, you know, that you know, we're not just asking money because it is a good cause, but it actually is a benefit to the donor themselves. We hear stories of transformations of, I'm a better parent now because my kids see me as a role model. I am a better father now because I now kind of understand the struggles of teens in a way that I didn't before. Or stories about, like, you know, this has brought me new meaning. Before I was retired and, you know, I was just kind of not having much to do, and now I have a new sense of meaning in my life. And then the other response that we get from donors is they really enjoy having a new network of like-minded people to connect with, and being part of a nonprofit as a donor in many ways have expanded their horizons, expanded their social networks, and so they really talk about how that has been a positive for them personally. So all these like amazing benefits of being a donor, they're right there and they're unplumbed. So go out there and capture these videos, and you will be so delightfully surprised, and so will your donors, about the stories that come out.
Perla, you know, the other thing we'd like to know is, does Great Nonprofits plan to offer any webinars on best practices for developing storytelling content or material for promotion?
Yeah, so we did a storytelling webinar, I think in the summer last year, so we'll be doing a lot more of them, and then we definitely will be probably doing an entire segment on video storytelling.
Thank you. We're just waiting.
These are such great questions. Thanks, everybody. You guys are really active. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's not easy to like be on a webinar for this long, so thanks for you guys who are still around.
Tammy, we have a couple of questions that have come in for you. We have one question which asks about, you know, what about restrictions for soliciting funding or fundraising outside your state? We were informed that we need to have licensure to receive funds from organizations or individuals outside our state. And could you shed some light on that, please?
Yes. Fundraising outside of your state or within your state, what are the requirements, where you need to register? There's legal requirements for people to apply for funding or seek donations in other states. So that is something that the nonprofit needs to be aware of and can check into. What I would suggest is just Googling funding restrictions and then the name of your state. There's a lot of solutions out there that help you navigate that if that's something that you don't already have a handle on and you want to do a lot of national fundraising. But definitely being up to speed on those regulations is something that you need to do, and you need to take ownership for that for your nonprofit.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I think we're pretty much out of time now. So just to quickly recap, so we've been talking about, you know, storytelling and how powerful stories are and how Great Nonprofits can help you with that. Here are some interesting statistics with regards to this the storytelling on Great Nonprofits, where 8 out of 10 donors have said that Great Nonprofit influences their giving. You have 9 out of 10 donors that say that reviews have shaped their opinion of a nonprofit. You have 9 out of 10 donors which say that reviews have helped them understand a nonprofit's mission. So I would definitely recommend that if you're not already present on Great Nonprofits, you should definitely get online and create a profile for yourself and invite all your volunteers and people who have benefited from your services to come out and share their stories with the rest of the world. And thanks again so much for joining us. We'll be sending an email shortly with all the slides and the recording from this chat. I would also request you to fill out the survey that's about to pop up. Thank you again so much to Perla and Tammy for your time and knowledge. This has been a very informative session, and a very big thank you for all of you who have joined in. I hope that you will join us again soon, and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.